Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about two components of language and philosophy that can actually give us great insight into ourselves: ambiguity and contradiction. Ambiguity is just uncertainty in meaning or interpretation. I can't even. Can't even what? By the way, one of the reasons I love dictionaries is their clever syntactic mechanisms for avoiding ambiguity. If you use Merriam-Webster, a primary definition of ambiguity is something that is ambiguous. So there, we solved it. But if ambiguity is one expression that can have many meanings, how do we deal with ambiguity's evil twin, contradiction? Contradiction is the inability to resolve two things that cannot both be true at the same time. For example, everything is relative. Absolutely everything. When I was in 9th grade about 100 years ago, my class spent an excessive amount of time pestering our debate coach to reconcile this. We all failed that semester, which is one form of reconciliation, but I exaggerate. Frankly, most of us are uncomfortable with ambiguity and contradiction. Have you ever known someone who, when faced with uncertainty, would sabotage an outcome in the worst possible way? Job interviews or asking someone out on a date, two closely related activities, are good examples. For many people, patience is a virtue that mostly belongs to someone else. It's harder to wait for an uncertain outcome to a problem than simply force a bad one now. When it comes to the power of ambiguity to elevate us, I like to think of a quote often attributed to a variety of sources in Eastern religions. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. What does it mean? It's certainly ambiguous. Most people go with their first interpretation, that some accident of fate or cosmic providence delivers expert advice at the exact moment when one's precisely ready to hear it. But another interpretation is much more nuanced and more poetic. What if teachers are all around us, every day in every place we are? What if everyone has something to show us, something we can learn from? What if we're so caught up in the roles we assign the people around us that we miss most opportunities to learn something new? If we made ourselves ready to learn each day by opening our eyes and hearts, could something really wonderful happen? Maybe. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Ambiguity can be an opportunity to grow. And what can contradiction teach us? Perhaps to be more empathetic listeners and analysts. I like to explore a contradiction developed by Dr. James Lau, late of George Mason University. It's called the ugly orange exercise, and it's still widely used today in schools and corporate training. A room is broken into two teams and given a negotiating prospectus. Each has the same amount of cash and must buy the world's entire dwindling supply of a now extinct fruit, the ugly orange. One team needs the fruit to synthesize from it a cure for a deadly cancer that's always fatal and takes over 100,000 lives a year. The other team needs the same fruit to develop a neutralizing agent for a nerve gas that's been developed by a terrorist group threatening havoc. And so these prospectuses in hand, and after individual preparation, the two groups come together to negotiate with each other. As you might imagine, the contradiction of need at the heart of this proposition almost always causes the negotiation to break down into something as ugly as the fruit itself, usually around which lives are more worth saving. The moderator brings an end to the exercise immediately before violence commences and asks each team to read their prospectus out loud. The teams discover that one team needed only the juice of the fruit and the other only the skin. They created a false dichotomy, invested themselves in it, and were unable to see what they had done. In this month of vigorous politics, possibly a good lesson to remember. Contradiction can come from a failure to listen, analyze, and explore. It's often apparent, but it's not always real. It results from the entirely human trait best explored by Charlie Munger to invest ourselves in a position and rather than explore it, act almost mindlessly based on the position itself rather than what it really means. The solution to a contradiction is often found by opening your heart and mind to other possibilities you may not have considered and asking empathetic questions. And our old friend ambiguity, it may exist to teach us patience, resilience, and wonder at the mysteries that live in the spaces between words. Together, ambiguity and contradiction are each other's reflections. And like all reflections, they can't exist without each other. They're an opportunity to grow, and I hope you'll consider letting them work their magic on you. Thank you for listening.